Your credit score is one of the most important numbers in your life. Why? Because a few points here and there could cost you potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's why in today's video, I'm talking about the 5 steps that can help you fix bad credit ASAP. Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you new joining, hi, my name's John of John's Finance Tips. I have spent the better part of the last decade in the credit card game, so I'd say I have a pretty good understanding of what makes a really strong credit score. But I do understand every now and then we might get a little bit off track, and today we're gonna go back to the basics where I share with you the 5 steps you can take to fix your credit if you may have made a little mistake here or there along the way. Now, full disclaimer, everything I give for you 100% free in this video can be done by a credit repair company or agency. You probably see them spammed, and they're probably gonna be spamming the comment section down below. If it's free, then why would anyone ever use a credit repair agency? Good question. Maybe they just have some extra money they want to light on fire. I'm kidding. More likely than not, they just don't have the access to the information. But all of the information is free on the internet. And so for me, I don't see any reason why anyone would require a credit repair agency because again, anything that they can legally do for you, you can legally do for free for yourself. And be sure to stick around till the end of this video where I'm gonna share with you the exact template that you can send off to all the different collections bureaus to try to get some of those negative marks scrubbed off your report. If that sounds like a plan, pop a squat and we're gonna go ahead and dive into step 1. Step 1, check your credit report. Folks, how the heck are we gonna fix anything if we don't even know what we're looking at? It is really important to get your credit report. You wanna say, hey, is what's shown on this report actually me? For example, are the names correct? Are the accounts correct? Are the balances correct? You wanna make sure that there's no discrepancies and no errors in your credit report because that's supposed to be a reflection of you that all the credit bureaus are reporting to everyone else. Now to pull your credit report, you've got a couple of options. The first one is my preferred, which is pulling a credit report directly from each of the 3 major bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And in the US, you can get 1 free report from each bureau every year. This method, far and away, is the most in-depth. However, I will say because it's so in-depth, it could take a little bit of unraveling to really read through it and understand what's going on, but this is definitely my top recommended option for pulling your credit report. Option 2, you could use an aggregator such as Credit Karma. Credit Karma, keep in mind, only pulls information in from TransUnion and Equifax. Nonetheless though, I think Credit Karma does a really good job of giving you a high level overview, at least to say, hey, do I recognize all of these accounts and do things roughly look accurate? I would still highly recommend that you back check everything on Credit Karma to your actual credit report. And making an account with Credit Karma is just free. Just go ahead and make that. The third option you have is actually pulling directly from Experian. It's 100% free. For some reason, Experian doesn't report to Credit Karma, so you wanna go on there and also verify. And again, because it's not just your full-length credit report, it might be a little bit easier to digest all the information. So the actions you can take in this step are trying to figure out, is everything in my credit report actually true and actually accurate? You'd be surprised at how some things can be misreported. And if there are any issues, what you wanna do is dispute them, basically saying, hey, this is wrong, that's incorrect, that's not mine, so that your credit report is accurate and they pull off anything that's not reflective of who you are. The easiest way to do it is you can do it directly with TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian online, where you're disputing some sort of error in the credit report. And in a situation where you're disputing, you're just basically saying, hey, that's inaccurate, and the onus now is going to be on the credit reporting agency to prove that it is actually accurate. More often than not, if they don't really have a really good audit trail, they can't, and so it gets scrubbed off your report. Now, if you don't want to go through the online channels, because sometimes that could take some of your arbitration rights, you can just send a direct letter into any of the 3 major agencies, and here's a link above for all of their mailing addresses. Be sure to stick around though, later in the video, I actually go over the exact template that we'll use to send off to any of the agencies. Step 2, pay down any credit cards that have crazy high balances. There's a thing called credit utilization, and that accounts for 30% of your credit score. Well, credit utilization is basically how much of your credit are you using. So let's say a credit card gives you a $10,000 credit limit. Let's say you swipe it and you use a $5,000 of the $10,000 credit limit. You're utilizing 50%. That is bad. That is going to absolutely tank your credit score. The general guidance is to try to keep your utilization below 20 or 30%. This one is entirely within your control. You don't need anyone else to help you out. And if you're just starting on your credit journey, understand that credit utilization is extremely important. So the actions you can take. The first one is pay down those balances. Get those credit utilizations numbers under 30%, under 20% if you can. The second thing you could do is instead of decreasing the amount that you're borrowing, you can increase the amount that you can borrow. Now, of course, if your credit is shot, this might be a stretch, but for some folks, you could try and ask for a credit limit increase. So let's say you had a $5,000 charge and a $10,000 credit limit. You could hit the bank up and say, hey, can I request a credit limit increase to $15,000 or $20,000? Obviously, the examples were a little bit exaggerated, but if you increase that side of the equation, your utilization would go down. And a quick pro tip when it comes to manipulating the credit utilization number so that you can help boost your credit score, try to get your payments in before the closing date. That's the magical date. It's not the due date. Try to pay off like 98% of your credit card balance before the closing date or the statement close date. And then when the due date comes, pay off the rest. And if you're interested exactly why that works, I'll leave a link up here for a video I did on exactly how you can do that to boost your credit score. Step 3, late payments. Get those things current. So when it comes to payment history, that accounts for 35% of your credit score. It is the most important and the heaviest weighted. And when it comes to credit history, all you need to do is pay on time. Now I get it, life happens. We might miss a day here, we might miss a day there, but it is extremely important that you're making consistent on-time payments because that would show all the credit bureaus that, hey, John's responsible, he's got all this stuff going on, but he's still making his credit card payments or whatever loan payment obligations. Even though payment history is extremely important, there is a little bit of wiggle room, if you will. So here's how it actually starts. If let's say your credit card bill is due on January 1st and some things came up, it's the new year, you're a little bit hungover and you forgot to pay it and you're like, oh shoot, it's January 2nd, don't worry, that's actually not gonna impact you at all. The credit card companies aren't really even gonna report that as a late payment. All they're gonna do is slap you with the late fee, but be sure to pay that off as soon as possible. Now, once you get to 30 days, that's when it's gonna get reported to the credit bureaus. So anywhere from 30 to 59 days, there's going to be a slight negative impact on your credit score. And if you don't get to it by then, anything from 60 to 149 days late is gonna be a much larger net negative impact on your credit score. And keep in mind with late payments, whether it's 30, 60, 90, or 120 days, those are going to stay on your credit report for 7 years before they completely fall off. So what are some actions you can take in this step? First one, get the sucker current. If you're just a couple days late, no worries, pay it off. And also you can ask the bank for a one-time courtesy waiver of the late fee. That's totally acceptable and it's not gonna really impact you at all. Another thing you can do is, let's say it's more than just a few days late. You're maybe 30, 60 days late, but you've got the money now, you can pay it off, you get it, hey, this is a really bad thing for me. What you can do is try to negotiate to have the negative mark removed if you pay it off in time. So that involves most likely at this point contacting some sort of collections agency to negotiate the removal, assuming that you can pay it off very quickly. The third thing you could do is take a look at the late payment and see, are there any errors in there? Are there any errors in, let's say, the delinquency date or the account number or the amount owed? Whatever that is, that you could then say, hey, you know, that's actually incorrect. This might not be my debt. So what you would do is reach out to the credit bureaus to let them know, hey, this is inaccurate. And then the onus is on whoever is trying to collect the debt to prove that, no, this is actually correct. And in the next section, I'm gonna go over for you the exact template that we can use to send off to the credit bureaus to get some of these negative marks removed. Step 4, collections. This is where the real potatoes and tomatoes are because I believe most folks are probably stuck around in this area. So what happens in collections? Basically, at this point, the originally issuing financial institution, let's say it's a bank, has said, hey, I don't think John's gonna pay his credit card bill, so you know what? We're gonna charge it off and give it to a collections agency to try to collect on the debt. The date in which this happens can range anywhere from like 120 to 180 days. It kind of varies based on the bank's internal processes. However, what's important for you to note is that this is bad. Like really bad. This is a huge negative impact because remember, it's a very, very late payment that now has been charged off. And with collections, they will stay on your credit report for 7 years. Now, before I go into some action steps of what you can take to remove collections, let me explain to you quickly how it works. This might actually help you a little bit. So when a credit card company says, hey, we can't collect on this debt, they essentially charge it off. They write it off as bad debt. They actually get a little bit of a tax break from it. Then they sell it to a collections agency. So let's say I had a $1,000 credit card bill that I never paid. Didn't pay it for a full year. The credit card company then goes, hey, collections agency, John owes us $1,000. If you give us $500, we're gonna give you the right to go collect the $1,000 from him. Collections agencies, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And so now a collection agency is gonna start hounding me to pay the $1,000 bill, even though they only paid $500 for it. And the difference in the $500 in which they paid for it and the $1,000 that I owe is gonna be the amount of money that they can profit. What's crazy is that collection agency can turn around and sell the debt again. Let's say it's been 2 years and I just ignore this collections agency. They might say, all right, John's really not gonna pay. Okay, so they turn to another collections agency and say, hey, you guys wanna pay us $250 for it? This guy owes $1,000. So this second collection agent says, yeah, sure, why not? And so it can go through a couple of these cycles. That is also important to keep in mind when we talk in the next section about some of the action steps that you can take to try to remove some of these collections. So actions you can take. The first one you could do is a pay for delete. This is really common in industry where you say, hey, collection agency, I will go ahead and pay you this debt. However, you must guarantee me that you're gonna remove this negative mark. Basically, they go to the credit bureau and say, hey, John's good, let's go ahead and scrub this negative mark off his credit report so that it doesn't continue dragging down the credit score. And this might seem a little bit intimidating, but all you're really doing is just making a deal. Remember, these guys purchase the debt. They only make money if you pay some of the debt. And so they're very incentivized to try to get you to pay something at least. Now with this, it can be a little bit intimidating, but here's some of the steps you can follow. First thing is you can go and call the collection agency directly and just negotiate this offer up front, saying, hey, I'll pay you, but you gotta promise me and guarantee me that you're gonna scrub this negative mark off. And the biggest tip I have for you folks is that if that initial agent is unwilling to play, you can always ask to speak to a supervisor. In addition, never pay a penny until you get the offer in writing. If they say, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds good. Here, why don't you pay us right now? Don't do that. If you do, they are not obligated anyway to actually honor the deal. Make sure you get the offer in writing. Then, once you have the offer in writing, go ahead and make sure you actually have the money to pay off whatever the outstanding debt is. And then just wait. Usually it takes about 30-ish days or so. If after 2 months, you still see that collections item on your credit report, then you can dispute it with the credit bureaus with your offer in hand saying, hey, listen, here's a deal. I paid it. I no longer owe this debt. I don't understand why it's still on my credit report. That is why you want to make sure you get something in writing and signed by an authorized person of that collections agency company. Another action item you can take is negotiate a payoff. Remember, these collection agencies purchase your debt at a discount, meaning yes, you might owe $1,000, but they might have purchased it for $500, so if you paid $750, they'll still make money and you pay less. The degree to which you can negotiate, that's gonna be entirely up to you and how much this agency is willing to play, and depending on how large amount the loan is. But I would say the further along you have been in terms of being in collections, you could probably negotiate for a more substantial discount because of the fact that your loan has probably been sold and sold and sold, and every time it gets sold, it's gonna be sold at a lower dollar amount. You can also try to negotiate for a payment plan, basically saying, hey, listen, I am gonna pay this back. However, it's gonna take me some time and work something out there. But I would say for all of these, you should still request for a pay for deletion. Even though you're gonna negotiate a lower payment amount, even though you're on a payment plan, basically, I'll pay you, you've gotta remove it. The next action item, I personally wouldn't recommend unless it's a very, very, very small amount of money. And that is just paying it off first and then calling them and asking if they're willing to reach out to the credit bureaus and try to scrub the negative mark off your credit report. Keep in mind, once you pay, they really don't have an incentive to help you out. So I really wouldn't do it for large debt amounts. If it's just 50 bucks or something, 40 bucks, something small, it's like, you know what? Got the money, I'll pay it off, give them a call, see if they'll scrub it. But even still, I say try to get some contract in place where they're gonna delete it once you pay. And the last action item you can take in this step is dispute. At this point, let's say your loan has been outstanding and it's been in collections for 3 years. It's gone through a couple of hands. And every single time, maybe details might get lost. Maybe some numbers end up getting changed. I don't know. I mean, they're selling from one agency to another, to another, another. So you want to take a look at the loan and make sure, hey, are these account numbers right? Is the date of delinquency right? Is the name correct? Is the address? Is everything on here actually reflective of what happened? If not, then very much you can say, hey, that's inaccurate. I don't really recognize this. Dispute. And to dispute any errors on your credit report is pretty straightforward. Now, you can do it through an online platform. However, if you do that, I believe you waive some of your arbitration rights. So I would recommend going about it the old-fashioned way in snail mail. You basically send in a letter to all 3 major bureaus stating the reason for the dispute. Now, here are 2 templates you can use, pick and choose, but adapt it to your situation. Also, make sure that when you are sending out this template, that it is going via snail mail and that you get it certified and that you get a return receipt, basically saying, hey, here's a receipt that says the mail was delivered. Once you go ahead and send off this dispute letter, then the onus is on the credit bureaus to prove that, okay, this is actually accurate and this is tied to you. And it could go a number of ways. sometimes they might have their ducks in a row and say, hey, actually, no, this is all exactly correct. Here's why, okay? And sometimes like, oh, you're right, actually. This is incorrect, boom, scrubbed. Or, shoot, we can't actually find the audit trail. We don't know where this information come from. Okay, scrubbed. That is how disputing is probably, I would say, the most useful and largely what all these credit repair companies do. But keep in mind though, obviously don't lie, make sure that it is actually inaccurate. Although knowing that sometimes that if your loan's been sold and sold and sold, they might have lost some information along the way and maybe they can't tie it back to you. I'm not saying you should, but I'm not saying you shouldn't. Step 5. Wait. What I mean by that is some of these processes might take a bill cycle or two to reflect the changes for sure, but also 7 years, folks. If after 7 years, for whatever reason, let's say you've had financial hardship, you've had a tough time getting out from it, but you've changed and you're working on your credit and you're at maybe year 6, you're closing in on year 7. Well, year 6, year 7, those negative marks for collections, for late payments, they start falling off your credit report. And so if you're close enough, just wait out the time. Now, if you declare bankruptcy, that's 10 years. But for anything else, if you're close to the 7-year mark, run the clock out, right? It's at this point, you could try all these steps. It certainly wouldn't hurt you, but at the same time, if you're busy, if you don't have time to dedicate to learning a lot of these, then it's just, you know what? I've got another year or so and these are gonna be falling off. I've been working on my credit. I understand that I need to pay on time and in full. I understand that credit card is borrowed money. Then I have no problem with just waiting. Cool, folks. Well, this has been a really good video. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are. Have you tried any of these methods before? And I'll also try to link some of the templates that I found so that you guys can go ahead and use to send them off to dispute errors. Best of luck, and I will catch you all on the next video. Peace.